Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a paradox that sits at the very heart of modern finance. It's a massive structural look at how our economy actually operates. We're talking about a framework where the absence of wealth isn't just treated as a void, it's actually treated as a highly lucrative asset class. Let's unpack exactly how economic vulnerability gets monetized. It's a pretty compelling hook, right? I mean, think about it. If poverty is fundamentally a lack of capital and resources, how on earth can someone having literally no money generate immense wealth for someone else? Traditional economics tells us that profit comes from surplus. You build something, you trade something of value. But what if we challenge that assumption head on? What if nothing, the absolute absence of capital, is actually the raw material being processed here? Well, here is the stark reality we're presented with. Poverty isn't just a social issue. It's not just a tragic byproduct or some accident of a capitalist society. It is an industry, a billion-dollar business. And, putting those words together completely changes the lens through which we view financial struggle. A business requires intent, it requires overhead, strategy, and above all, it requires profit margins. And that perfectly illustrates the dark irony we are unpacking today, the highly lucrative nature of lacking capital. The business we're looking at isn't about selling a luxury good or the newest tech. No, the business itself is the state of being poor. There is an entire economic ecosystem engineered specifically to monetize financial fragility. It completely flips the traditional narrative of wealth generation right on its head. So, part one, the actors. Who exactly is profiting? Look, if poverty is a billion-dollar business, that means there are shareholders, executives, and massive institutions cashing those checks. A business doesn't just exist without operators, right? The architecture of this system points explicitly to three distinct entities as the primary beneficiaries: banks, lenders, and corporations. This gives us a really precise map of the financial ecosystem, showing us exactly where that wealth extraction happens in real time. Let's zoom in on the first pillar, the banks. Institutional beneficiaries. When we usually think of banks, we think of places that store and grow wealth for folks who already have it. But here, banks are defined a bit differently. They aren't merely custodians of wealth. They're institutions positioned to systematically profit directly from a state of poverty. The very architecture of modern banking contains mechanisms designed to actively penalize a lack of funds. Just think about massive overdraft fees or minimum balance penalties. They turn that exact penalty directly into institutional revenue. It's wild when you frame it that way. Next up, we have the lenders, the credit mechanics. Now, it's really fascinating that the source material categorizes lenders separately from traditional banks. This highlights a whole secondary tier of the financial sector dedicated specifically to extraction. Lenders operate a business model that capitalizes purely on a lack of alternative capital. For them, the very act of needing money becomes the product. If you can't access traditional wealth structures, you get funneled into things like high-interest payday loans. Your total lack of options literally becomes their ultimate leverage. Finally, let's look at the third pillar, the corporations, the broad market. This final pillar expands the scope way past the purely financial sector and out into the general economy. It suggests that the business of being poor isn't just some niche trick used by predatory lenders. It's actually a widespread corporate strategy. Everyday corporations, the places where goods are bought, services are rendered, and employment is structured, they are engineered to optimize profit from the financially disadvantaged. Think about the poverty premium. That's the concept where buying necessities in smaller quantities or using lower-tier services actually ends up costing more over time. This kind of extraction is baked right into the DNA of broad market commerce. Which brings us to the next section, the currency, financial desperation. Okay, so we know who the actors are, but what's the actual fuel driving this whole machine? Well, while traditional commerce is all about an exchange of surplus capital, people with money buying things they want, this system flips that entirely. Here, financial desperation itself is the resource being harvested. Desperation is the core commodity, the urgency, the absolute lack of choice, the immediate necessity for survival. All of that is mathematically converted into profit margins. This quote perfectly sums it up. We are looking at how banks, lenders, and corporations profit from poverty and financial desperation. It creates this incredibly tight, highly efficient cycle of extraction. It seamlessly links massive institutions right alongside the raw human condition of desperation. It shows us exactly how one feeds directly on the other. If we actually map out this logical flow, It operates exactly like a machine on an assembly line. Step 1 is your baseline condition, poverty, a lack of resources. This inevitably leads to step 2, financial desperation. That's the acute, highly pressurized need for immediate capital just to survive. And that exact pressure sets up step 3, institutional profit. Desperation essentially forces individuals to engage under highly unfavorable terms, which results in massive revenue for the institutions on the other side. It is a perfectly calibrated engine of wealth transfer. Which brings us to the ultimate, inescapable conclusion of this whole explainer. If we accept this premise, that banks, lenders, and corporations are generating billions in profit derived directly from financial desperation, it leaves us with a truly chilling final thought. When a structural system is this deeply reliant upon widespread desperation, dismantling that system actively threatens the bottom line of the most powerful institutions in the market. So I'll leave you with this question. If the machine runs on poverty, who actually has the financial incentive to turn it off? It's a lot to think about. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. We'd absolutely love to hear them. Thanks for tuning into this explainer here on YouTube, and we'll catch you next time.